Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Shelby on Safari live stream, the place where I, Shelby, wild animal biologist and lover of pulp culture, also combines my two passions into one. And tonight is no exception. Folks, Thor Love and Thunder is only a few weeks away, and I am so looking forward to seeing this movie. I'm absolutely delighted that Taika Waititi has returned with his creative genius to bless us and bless our screens with his ultimate craziness. And for those of you who may have been watching the trailers and been quite confused as to why Thor has goats, and nonetheless goats that are pulling a boat, that is why tonight we are going to be going into the world of goats. Because, well, why not, right? So join me tonight as we discover goats in Norse mythology, goats in the comics and Thor's comics run, as well as what I think maybe these goats might get up to in Thor Love and Thunder, before, of course, bringing it back into the real world with goats in real life and some cool things about them that you may not know. So, as always, if you are joining me, whether live or in the replay, please let me know down in the comments section. It is always exciting to be able to hear from you guys. And if you're watching live or on the replay, always let me know. And in true Shelby on Safari fashion, this one is also quite interactive. So I encourage you, I have two questions for you guys. It's going to be a rather shorter live stream because, as you may have guessed by my voice, I am not particularly up to par as I normally am. So yeah, so let's get started and diving into the world of goats and Thor. I can't wait for this film, and I'm excited to share it with you guys, just the excitement leading up to it. So here's a quick shot at this is Artistic Liberty, but here we get an idea of not one, but two goats that Thor has. Now, apologies to those that may be able to pronounce these names, but Tangrisnir and Tanostner, essentially meaning teeth bearer and teeth grinder, are the names of Thor's goats, depicted here in this artistic drawing of the Norse god Thor. Now, these guys, as seen here, pull his chariot across the sky and bring Thor and his companions to any of the 9 realms. And in fact, the chariot itself isn't so subtle. And so as we see in Thor Love and Thunder, it's actually, in the form of a boat, but it's been typically depicted as a chariot. And this chariot isn't particularly subtle. Oh, hey, Al. We're just talking goats for tonight for Thor Love and Thunder. We're going into some Norse mythology first and foremost before making our way into the comics and then into the real world. Some cool stuff about goats. But yeah, teeth gnasher and teeth bearer and teeth grinder are kind of the English translation names for these two goats. And like I said, the chariot, and you can kind of see in this picture, there's some sparks at their hooves. Now, when this chariot moves, and as we can see by the hooves, blue lightning comes out and the sound of thunder. And so the chariot itself isn't quite subtle. And to be fair, I wouldn't expect anything less from Thor. I would expect some pizzazz. So to have lightning and the sound of thunder, blue lightning to be precise, how cool is that? That's quite the entrance. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know what my entrance would be. I don't know. Oh, I know. I would like the smell of plumerias. So whenever I'm about to enter a room, people go, whoa, what's that smell? And it's plumerias. Let me know in the chat what you would want your entrance to be if it's not blue lightning like Thor. Oh, hi, Rita. Nice to see you. Yeah, tell me what your interest would be. I mean, maybe it's a sound, maybe it's a sight or smell. I went for smell only because I have this really nifty thing next to me, actually, that my mom gave me. It's coconut oil, but it's tiare, and it's from Tahiti, and it smells absolutely amazing. And so I've been putting it just at the ends of my hair, and it I wish it was smell-o-vision. I wish you guys could smell this, but it's a beautiful smelling flower, and it makes me feel like I'm back in Hawaii. So it's nice. Sometimes I probably do this subconsciously. Like I smell my hair and I'm like, ah, it smells lovely. And people are probably like, dude, what's she doing? But it's because it smells like lovely flowers. Not quite plumeria. But yeah, plumerias are the best flower. Come at me. Anyways, so this chariot isn't quite subtle. Now, what I wanted to talk about really quick was the multi-uses of Thor's goats. And in Norse mythology in particular, there is the saga of Thor's journey to Utgard. And the goats in this story served a very different purpose than just pulling a chariot. In fact, Thor and Loki decided to stop at a farm in Midgard. And the poor farmer and his family, they were quite poor. And I don't know why Thor and Loki decided to stop at this particular farm, but they did. And because the family were so poor, they couldn't offer Thor anything to eat. Now, Thor has quite the appetite in Norse mythology, and that's kind of alluded to in some aspects in the MCU as well. But yeah, he didn't really have anything to eat. And so what did Thor do? That is my question to you guys in the chat. I want to know what Thor did next. Did Thor have them for dinner? Did he have his goats for dinner? B, did he ride the goats and go hunting and find his own food? Or C, did he milk the goats? Let me know in the chat while I have a tall glass of water. In a nifty Starbucks cup, actually. There's one thing that I absolutely hate most about being unwell, and that is not having my voice. Like, I genuinely, I could have the nastiest sinus infection in the world and be like, meh, but to not have my voice, that kills me. So that's why I'm still doing the live stream, because I refuse to let it go. And I'm probably going to regret this tomorrow, but that's fine. Anyways, let me know in the chat. Okay, Alice goes for C, milk the goats. Funny story, I actually only recently just tried goat's cheese a couple days ago. It was in a goat cheese. Well, obviously, it was in a tart and it had like rocket on the side and some vinaigrette. I was quite brave given that I was out at a posh dinner. But yeah, I was quite bold and I ate a good majority of it, which I was surprised by, but it was really delicious. I was surprised. Anyways, just because you like the idea of it, B, go ride the goats and go hunting. See, I like that idea too. I thought that would be fantastic, him to go use the goats and go hunting, kind of like instead of going on horseback. Unfortunately, though, he actually did A. He had them for dinner. Now, before this feels really sad, and at first when I read this story, I was like, dude, that's brutal. But what Thor did, he was very specific about his instructions to the family and to Loki and to everybody who was partaking in the meal of his goats. He said, you can eat kind of all that you want, you can have it, but don't break the bones. And when you're finished with the bones, put them on the skin over here, and kind of leave it. And so I imagine the farmer and his family were quite thankful, at least one would think, to have some meat on the table, especially if they're quite poor, they might not have had much meat. But as we know, Loki, well, he's the god of mischief, right? And so Loki, deciding to be Loki, he tells the young farmer's boy, dude, if you break open the bone, you can get some sweet marrow. And it's really delicious. So you should try it. And this poor boy fell for Loki's charisma and his charm. And he broke one of the bones and ate and then put it subtly back on the skin without saying anything. So fast forward to the next morning after their goat feast. And Thor goes and he's like, all right, I'm going to bring him back to life, as one does. I'm assuming he probably used the power of Mjolnir and the Bifrost to bring the goats back. However, when he did bring the goats back, he saw that one of them was limping, and Thor was not happy about this. And so he found out that it was the boy who broke the bone. And as if this wasn't a harsh enough judgment to not be scared out of your mind because the god of thunder is angry at you for essentially breaking the leg of one of his goats, he then takes you and his sister and makes you both slaves of his family. So yeah, so this poor farmer, he tries to bring in the Norse gods, and tries to help him out. And then, his poor boy and daughter get taken to be the slaves of Thor and Loki and the rest of the family. I guess that goes just to show, don't listen to Loki. Don't break the bones, no matter what you say. But the nice thing is that he did revive the goats in the end. So as trippy as that was, at least they're back. Now, in the comics, guys, I would like to know what you guys think. When do you think Tooth Gnasher and Tooth Grinder were introduced in the Marvel comics? So their names have adapted just a bit from the English translation from the Norse mythology names for the goats, Tooth Gnasher and Tooth Grinder. But when do you think they were introduced? So Marvel Comics have been around for quite some time, but was it in 1969 or more recently in 1996 or 1976? Woo! Both Rita and Alice spot on. It is C, a couple of sea dogs. Aye, matey. Yes, indeed. 1976. No idea why I put that question in. It was just a weird pop culture trivia question. So here's some of depictions of them. And I love seeing how over time they've been depicted a bit differently. And again, very similar to the homage to the Norse mythology, they are quite powerful. They, when their hooves, the lightning that comes from them and whatnot. But as we can see here, they're not just your typical average goats. They can move fast on land and they can move fast in the air. And they're about the size of grown men, although technically, like from this depiction, it looks like they're a bit bigger. And from what we've seen in the trailer for Thor Love and Thunder, they definitely are a bit bigger as well. So I think the depiction that they're about the size of a grown man, that'd be one heck of a big grown man to be the size of. They look quite massive. So yeah, that's kind of and their role within it. Thor has built up quite the attachment with these goats, and so quite kind of like a house pet, right? Like Maui and I. Although I doubt Maui would want to pull anything in a chariot, unless he was like chasing after Kiana, because he and Kiana don't get on. But I really think it's going to be fascinating in Thor: Love and Thunder to see what they bring of that relationship, because in the comics they've been together for so long, but in the MCU they haven't really acknowledged the goats. And so maybe he forms a friendship with them throughout the course of the movie. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it because just the relationship in the comics is so strong. And I do want to say, you guys know I'm biased towards Loki. And Loki, after all his faults, he did in one of the comics, even though he has his mischievous side, he did recognize the relationship between Thor and his goats. And when one of them, I think it was Tooth Gnasher, died, Loki actually resurrected Tooth Gnasher as a gift for Thor, which I thought was quite sweet. Because to be fair, Loki often gets a bad reputation and doesn't always redeem himself. But I thought that was quite nice of Loki. So in Thor: Love and Thunder, here's a brief snapshot from one of the trailers. You can see they're pulling a boat, so a very different chariot. Interesting tidbit, there's a neon sign on this boat saying cocktails and dreams, and I believe that's the same sign from Top Gun, which I thought was quite funny, especially given the homage to 80s kind of references in this film. Big Trouble in Little China, Kurt Russell's character definitely playing some kind of inspiration for one of Thor's kind of outfits in this film, which again is also really funny because Kurt Russell being, Star-Lord's dad, I don't know, it's just all like muddled and confused and so little geeky and nerdy beyond all reason. I love it. But probably the thing that I'm most looking forward to is them pulling Thor with the Rainbow Bridge. I love a Funko Pop. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how they've developed, again, that relationship. Were these goats just your run-of-the-mill goats that were pulling, for tours of Asgard, and Thor just happened to go on this boat and then he forms his friendship with them? Or has he known them for a while and it's just kind of glossed over? Who knows? But yeah, love this idea of it being a Viking ship as well that they're pulling. It's a subtle difference than the chariot, but I'm here for it. So, as you can guess, probably by the constant delay, oh, hey, Katie, hope you're doing well. My voice is deteriorating quite quickly and quicker than Ursula can take it, it feels. And I want to play a video of a goat. I mean, look how cute. And look at the little kid as well. I would want to say that the title for tonight's live stream was a combination effort of many different puns. But yeah, a kid is the offspring of a goat, and kidding is the act of kind of giving birth, which I thought is quite ironic. You got to be kidding, giving birth to a kid. Anyways, but the main thing about goats that I wanted to share with you guys, and as we see this picture again, because there we go, here's some pictures of some goats, that they're not actually as dim-witted as you might think. And because they've been domesticated for so long, some scientists think that we've almost made them a bit more dim-witted than they are in the wild, because they're really good at foraging and actually use their mouth to assess the forage and be able to see, okay, is this good for me to eat? Is this not good for me to eat? But being domesticated and kind of having the right food for them, they haven't been able to utilize their brain power, if you will, as much. But they also live in quite complex social groups. And it's fascinating to be able to see some of the studies, which after we finish, I'll pop a link to some of them in the description down below, because I personally never thought as goats as quite highly complex, social beings. But in preparation for this, yeah, reading a few of the studies was absolutely fascinating. And they're also quite clean too. I know sometimes a lot of farmyard animals might get kind of a bad reputation for being, dirty, like pigs as well, which, by the way, this Friday's video is going to be on a pig, and it's going to be on Lechonk, the new Pokemon for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So we're going to talk pigs on Friday. This is a very domesticated week, I feel. But one of the things that I want to say that we'll see in Thor, Love, and Thunder, and you might have seen in some of the trailers, is the screaming, the bleating of a goat. And I'm looking forward to seeing this because I love Korg, and Korg reacts kind of to their screaming. Now, goats, because of kind of their complex social groups, they need to communicate a lot, right? And so they do this by bleating. And in the trailer, we see them screaming and whatnot. But I thought it was funny that when goats sound an alarm, they make a sneezing noise. Isn't that trippy? Yeah, I was just surprised by that. A sneezing noise of all things for our little goat friends. And they also have a variety of different bleats, which I think what a cool area to study. I've talked about otters a lot, and even some of the foxes I've mentioned where these studies have gone in. And actually, it was in the last video too about the marmots. The alpine marmots, I talked about their communication as well when looking at Pommy, the Pokemon, where these scientists get to go out in the field and study and record all the different noises that these animals make. And I think just offhand, we think, oh yeah, they're just bleeding. But when you really study, you can then be able to identify all the different noises and really recognize and appreciate the vast variety of sounds that these animals create. And I love it. I love it. And yeah, so each individual kind of goat has its own distinct voice as well, and utilizing those various bleats in terms of volume and pitch and depth, they all mean so many different things, which is quite snazzy in my opinion. Now, I wanted to bring in, as you know, I often like to combine animals and pulp culture. I wanted to introduce you to the Norwegian coast goat, because I thought, what better type of goat, especially since New Asgard in the MCU is on the coast and they have goats, they probably might be based off of the Norwegian coast goat. Say that 10 times fast. Now, the earliest records of these goats' existence date back to about the 1700s, when they were bred on the islands of Mor and Romsdal in Norway. And ironically enough, these islands were then abandoned in 1940, and the goats were kind of left to their own devices, and yet they've still managed to survive, which is pretty incredible, and a true testament to their resilience, I would definitely say. Their ability to withstand harsh winters and, the variety of different climates that might come with Norwegian weather, especially being on the coast. I can imagine it's windy and rainy, but yet these goats survive and are definitely resilient. Now, unfortunately, this breed of goat is recognized as endangered, as there are only 180 females left that can reproduce. So they're quite threatened, but I just find them absolutely stunning. I mean, what a great place to live. Am I right? Like right on the coast, nice and green. Yeah, it's a bit windy. Yeah, it might be rainy, but yet they tough it out and they're just so cute. I mean, look at those faces. But yeah, definitely the goat type of goat that I think probably tooth gnasher and teeth grinder are. But with that, it's coming up to just about 7:30, and as you can see, my voice is fading quite quickly. But I wanted to say thank you guys so much for hanging out with me tonight as we quickly looked through goats in Thor Love and Thunder, Thor in the comics and Norse mythology, as well as meet the Norwegian coast goat. Definitely a pretty snazzy animal, and one that deserves a lot more recognition than just being a dim-witted goat, which hopefully we'll see in Thor Love and Thunder. They have to be somewhat clever to be able to, pull a chariot through the sky, know where they're going. It looks like one of them seems a bit silly with his tongue flopping out, but we'll see what they do. Either way, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Taika Waititi and the rest of the gang bring to us in theaters in just a couple weeks' time. In the meantime, if you're looking for something to watch or keep occupied, I highly recommend the Disney Plus series Miss Marvel. As a fan of the comic of Miss Marvel, I'm really enjoying the series, and I know some people are frustrated because they're not quite keeping to the comic side, but actually, kind of like some of the Disney remakes to an extent. I love the comics, and I think if they made it spot on to the comics, I'd be like, well, I just want to go read the comics. Kind of like Beauty and the Beast, not to like throw shade or anything, but the Beauty and the Beast remake, it just made me want to go and watch the animated version. And same with Kamala Khan, and they're pulling some of the best bits from the comics and creating this new story, which is so fun to watch. And it still does make me want to go reread the original comics, but I'm appreciating the story for what it is. So I highly recommend, if you are looking for something new, something fun. It's definitely something different from the MCU stories that we've seen. And I think what they've done on Disney Plus is crazy. The amount of diversity of the different genres of TV shows that they've been able to churn out, has been nuts. And yeah, one might say I might be enjoying it almost as much as Loki, which is saying something. But anyways, here's where you can find me when I have my voice and when I do more stuff. If you haven't already, be sure to follow on Instagram. That's where I share probably the most kind of content, including kind of behind the scenes and updates as to when I go live, and often create polls for you guys to share with me. But yeah, with that, it's time to go make some dinner and go have a hot tea and lemon. But thank you guys, and I look forward to seeing you guys on Friday evening when we look into the world of Pokemon and Lechonk, the pig Pokemon, and seeing how pigs are really depicted, and maybe even meeting a really cool breed of pig in the meantime, and some of the amazing Pokemon-like powers of pigs in our world. So to do that, be sure to hit that subscribe button, tap that little bell notification and make it go ding so you can be notified of when I go live, when I share videos, and all of that jazz. But in the meantime, have a great rest of the evening, and I will see you guys all later. Night, everybody. Bye.